last year with COVID, how do we take our kids back to normal real life and have an attachment with the religion and Quran?
So I'll repeat the question because I'm broadcasting live also, just so other people can benefit from your questions too. So in this new environment, especially with the social isolation that was caused by COVID, how do we facilitate an attachment to the religion for our children? It's a pretty loaded question. I'd start simple though. I think that kids just need to be, we need to have a good balance between talking to them and listening to them. Right? So, and this balance is actually something Quran inspired. The Fatiha, Allah is talking, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin, and then we're talking, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. It's actually a conversation. And we call Allah innaka sami'ud du'a. Allah, one of Allah's sunan is that He listens, right? So a lot of times we want to have halaqat for our children, and we want to tell them this, that, or the other, or teach them the stories of the prophets, and all of those things are great. But a lot of times we just don't even know what's going on in our kids' heads. We don't even know where they're at in their head. We don't even know do you even know what games they're playing? What friends they have? What conversations they're having? What they're into? We don't, and they're not going to tell you, because if you ask them, so what you doing? Nothing. So what do you like to play? Games. Which ones? I don't know. They know, but they don't want to tell you because you're boring. Right? So we have to learn to facilitate meaningful conversations with our kids. And one of the best ways we can do that is actually activities with our kids. As a parent, one of the things that you can really do to enhance your relationship with your children so they open up to you is to not give them stuff and give them more devices, or get them something else, a game or something where they're glued to the screen again. Yeah, they can play games, that's fine. But you need to do some kind of activity. Either you're doing an oil change together, or you're changing tires, or you're going out fishing, or you're going for a walk. Something where they're disconnected from the internet. And they're forced to have a real conversation with you. And you should learn, you should even look this up. How do you ask prompt questions? They're called prompt questions of children. How do you get children to open up? You learn to ask them prompt questions. Not just yes or no questions or one word answer questions. How was your day? Good. How's school? Good. Are you feeling okay? Yes. Are you hungry? No. Yes. No. Yeah. I don't know. Ice cream? One word answers. Well, that's because you're asking the wrong kinds of questions. Hey, so what do you think about the Isha prayer? Was that too long? Did you think it was too long? Did you get tired? You looked a little tired. Were you tired? I see. There's a conversation. He said, yeah. And you could ask what's the scariest thing that ever happened to you last year? And then you as a dad or mom could say, the scariest thing that ever happened to me when I was your age, and you can tell them that story. You've taken an interest in something that's happening in their life, and you're learning to ask these questions that are getting them to open up. And you'd be surprised how many opportunities to bring up and to inspire them with something that you learned from your Prophet or from the Quran will come up in the middle of those conversations. And those kinds of conversations are not a lecture. They're not a dars. They didn't sit down in a halaqah. They were just walking around in the park or shooting some ball or something, right? And those are the things that leave a lasting impression on a child's personality. Because your goal and my goal in education is actually to leave an imprint. What do you remember from the halaqat you sat in? Nothing. You know what you remember? My dad, one time we were driving, you know what he said to me? Why do you remember that? Because you were driving. It was an exclusive moment between you and your dad. And then he dropped something on you and you remembered it forever. Right? Look back at the thousands of hours you've spent with your father as a child or your mother as a child, and how many quotes do you actually remember? A handful. And you'll notice that those handful of quotes or memories are because they were memorable moments. So you know what? Our job should actually be to facilitate memorable moments. That should be part of our prerogative. And then inshallah, these opportunities to share something of benefit that will actually be internalized by kids will happen.
Jazakallah khair. For the next question, there is a sister who has reverted back to Islam. And so her question to actually Sheikh Ibrahim was, she obviously would like to see her parents, inshallah, one day become Muslim as well. And so in seeking this advice, she went to a sheikh who basically told her that don't make dua for non-Muslims. And so she's in the crowd tonight, yeah. But it's real, right? So obviously, if you can shed some light on that, I know you'll be...
Okay, so the question was, the sister accepted Islam. She'd like to see her parents become Muslim one day. May Allah guide them to Islam. She went and asked someone, and they basically told her, don't make dua for non-Muslims. That's what they told her. How utterly ridiculous. I wouldn't even say with all due respect, because I have no respect for that answer. Did Umar bin Khattab and Abu Jahl, were they not prayed for by Rasulullah ﷺ for their guidance? What religion are you following? How can you give such cruel advice to someone? We love our parents. Doesn't matter if they're Christian, Muslim, atheist, Jew, agnostic. It doesn't matter what they are. They're our parents. And we want the best for them in this life and in the next. And wishing the best for them and praying for them is actually completely not only acceptable, it's something you should do. That would make you a normal person. It makes you a normal person. Ibrahim alayhi salam made dua when he built the Kaaba. He says, فَاجْعَلْ أَفْئِدَةً مِّنَ النَّاسِ تَهْوِي إِلَيْهِمْ. But incline people's hearts towards them. Was he concerned about believers or all of humanity? All of humanity. And we call ourselves the religion of our father Ibrahim. We call ourselves that. When Lut alayhi salam, the angels came to destroy the nation of Lut, where did they stop first? They stopped with Ibrahim alayhi salam, right? And when he heard that this nation is going to be destroyed, I swear if we knew that the nation of Lut is about to be destroyed and somebody gave us a memo ahead of time, we're like, Alhamdulillah, finally these kuffar are going to get it. Can I watch? And what did Ibrahim alayhi salam say? Yujadiluna fi qawmi Lut. He argued with the angels, fought back. Is there some way they can be saved? He's concerned about them. This is something the ummah was given as a gift. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas, not minan nas. You're the best people that were extracted for the service of humanity, not from humanity. We're not the best of people, we're the best for people. How can you be the best for people? You don't wish for them to have guidance. You don't mean well for them. Nuh alayhi salam, how many centuries? And what is he saying? Ya qawmi, ya my people, my people, my people. He's inviting them. He wants good for them. So your parents, absolutely you should pray for them. And if somebody's going to cite Ibrahim alayhi salam's the exchange where Allah Azza wa Jal told him not to make dua for his father anymore, he didn't say that from the beginning. Remember when he was leaving the house, what did he say? سَوْفَ أَسْتَغْفِرُ لَكُمْ رَبِّي. I will make istighfar for you. And at that moment, Allah did not stop him. It is actually in the surah that discusses bara'ah, where it's known, Allah has revealed a verdict that this person will not change. Now I forbid you. Have you received a revelation that your father or mother will not change? So it's haram for you to make dua for them? Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. You should be making dua for them. You should be the best of them. And the best of your da'wah to them will be you're a better daughter than you ever were in your entire life. You're more patient with them, you're more kind to them, you respond with wisdom than you ever did before. That's and at the same time you maintain your du'as for them. You don't think Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam made dua for Abu Talib? You don't think he did that? You don't think he made dua for his own people? And you would think there's haram for you to make dua for non-Muslims? How absolutely absurd. I hope someone who gave that answer is offended.
Jazakallah khair. And there's one question that came in from the guy's side. The question is, since more than 1/3 of the Quran speaks to the people of the book, i.e. Christians or the Jews, what advice would you give in those who are interested in making da'wah to these two groups and other non-Abrahamic faiths?
Okay, so 1/3 of the Quran speaks to the people of the book. I would add some qualifications. Like for example, I'll tell you something about Ali Imran that's not very well known. Allah says, Ya Ahlul Kitab, Ya Ahlul Kitab, Ya Ahlul Kitab, right? So we translate that as what? People of the book. Ahl actually is short for mu'ahal, qualified. And the context of those ayat is they were actual Christian ordained priests, ministers, deacons, people that have spent time in the church and have studied the Bible and have spent their lives as monks, etc. They came to discuss with the Rasul ﷺ, and he's having an exchange with them. Now you having a conversation with a Presbyterian minister is different than you having a conversation with your Christian taxi driver or your regular old, neighbor that happens to be Catholic or happens to be Protestant or whatever else, who doesn't know much about his own religion either, right? A lot of the dialogue in the Quran is not happening with the average Christian or average Jew. It's actually happening with the rabbis, the priests, the ministers, which is one of the miracles of the Quran. The Quran, usually when people want to proselytize other people's religions, they go for the least knowledgeable people and try to convert them to their religion. Quran went after the most knowledgeable of the people of the book. Went after the most knowledgeable and said, Hatu burhanakum. Hatu burhanakum. Bring your evidences. Fa'tu bit Tawrati fatluha. Bring the Tawrat and read it. Right? Sahaba would walk into Jewish study seminaries in Medina and say, Fa'tu bit Tawrati fatluha. They would do that. Like in the seminaries, they would do that. Why? Because and so what happens a lot of times is the dialogue in the Quran gets confused with the conversation we should be having with the average Christian. No, those are for the knowledgeable Christians, because sometimes it's antagonistic. And yeah, it will be antagonistic, because when someone knows the truth and they're hiding it, then Allah will be angry with them. And you can't just use those ayat and talk to some guy who doesn't know anything and say, yeah, you hide the book? You hide the truth? I'm like, oh, no, bro, I just trying to get a burger. I just came back from church, we had a barbecue. I don't know what you're talking about. So you're getting all, but the Quran says you people. No, the Quran doesn't say that. You think the Quran says that. So chill out a little bit. The da'wah does not mean, and by the way, the other thing that often happens is I want to make da'wah to Christians, so I want to open up the Bible and I want to show them all the contradictions in the Bible. Please stop doing that. The sunnah of which prophet is this? The sunnah of which prophet is this? That you go to people of a faith and you show them how absurd their faith is, or how contradictory their faith. You wouldn't like it. You wouldn't like it. If they came to you with the Quran and said, look, the Quran says this. First of all, you and I, most of us aren't even that educated in the Quran anyway. So if they start quoting stuff, we're like, I'm going to ask my imam, I'll get back to you. So don't do something you're not ready for. And it's not courteous anyway. This is not the way they were invited. When you know what Allah describes how they were invited? When they hear what Allah has revealed in the Quran, تَرَى أَعْيُنَهُمْ تَفِيضُ مِنَ الدَّمْعِ, you will see their eyes start rolling with tears. The good they have in the Bible, because it still has nur in it, فِيهِ هُدًى وَنُور. The good they have in it, they see the perfection of it when you speak sincerely about your own faith, about your own book, about what Allah says. When they hear about Maryam, I'm witness to this. When you just translate the ayat of Surah Maryam to a Christian crowd, many of the men, women sitting there, older men that have spent their lives going to church, never missed a Sunday, sitting there crying their hearts out. Not thinking, these Muslims, they're not doing that. They're sitting crying their eyes out. Not a Muslim shed a tear when they heard those ayat, and those Christians are sitting there crying. That's the reality of those people. So, we have to show courtesy, respect. And we have to introduce them to something that is common ground. We have to introduce them. We have to reintroduce them to Mary. We have to reintroduce them to Abraham. You guys believe in Abraham too, yeah? Well, ours is pretty different. Let me show you something about our Ibrahim alayhi salam. Don't tell them your version of Abraham is wrong. We got the real deal. Just show them something. And you know what? I've done this. And I've tried it. And you know what's happened? Like rabbis of many years of study behind them are sitting there crying when I'm just doing a dars on one ayah about Ibrahim alayhi salam. Why is this guy crying listening to a Gentile Muslim? An Ishmaelite. Right? Why is he listening and why is he crying? Because he heard something about his father that touched his heart. Because the Quran does that. It hits the hearts. مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. So we just have to know our book and be able to speak about our book from the heart and intelligently. That's all we got to do. Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair. Now there's a question from the sister side.
Yes, so there's a question from one of the sisters over here. Can you please explain the word rahaka? May Allah bless you.
Yeah, I can explain the word rahaq. As I was telling you, the etymology of rahaq has to do with so they use the word rahaq for dogs that are trained for hunting and they catch an animal. So rahaq al-kilab as-sayda. That's how they use it. So when the dogs catch the prey and they pounce on it and it's crushed under its paws and it can't move, right? It's completely surrendered under the oppression of the hunting dog. That scene is rahaq. And so this was the word used for the child in Surah Al-Kahf who was going to grow up and he was going to crush his parents under the claws of his abuse. طُغْيَانًا وَكُفْرًا. And so this is actually a very visual image. It's actually describing that they become victims. Just like the hunted animal is the victim, they're the prey. So he was going to be a victim of his parents. So just like we talk about, in modern society we talk about parental abuse, parents abusing children. There's actually also children abusing parents, especially parents of old age. And that's being commented on here, right? With that word. So I hope that helps a little bit. Inshallah.
Okay.
I couldn't hear your question. So yeah, in the ayah is Allah saying that the victims were just going to be the parents of this young man, or were there going to be others too? Actually, because of the masdar usage, I won't get technical with you, the ripple effect of the evil was much larger. It was actually much, much larger. And the parents were the immediate they were in the immediate blast radius of the evil that was going to come out of this person. Yeah.
Okay, so one final question for the night. What is the best advice for our young children on how to respond to other kids when they are criticized about being Muslim or they're being made fun of because of their Muslim name?
So kids, a couple of things. So let me repeat the question so my audience online hears it too. What is advice for children who get bullied at school, made fun of because they're Muslim, criticized because they're Muslim, or get tormented with verbal abuse because they have a Muslim name? What should they do? First of all, children have a right to be protected. Children, I'll repeat myself, all children have a right to be protected. And that includes Muslim, non-Muslim, all children. So when children are being insulted, humiliated, when children are being bullied, even at the hands of other children, then parents have to become extremely proactive and extremely annoying with their public. You're tax-paying citizens. You're paying. Those children are asking me for guidance on what to do. They have you, and you're supposed to go fight their fight in these schools. So no one gets to say a word to them about being Muslim, just like no one gets to say to anything to any child that's African American or Jewish or Hispanic or whatever. And if they do, there's going to be hell to pay. And you know what? You have to raise your voices. You have to get aggressive. And you have to call. And you know what? If that means, and sometimes in our country, the only language larger institutions understand is dollar bills. So file lawsuits for the emotional trauma caused to your child. File lawsuits. Who's stopping you? Who's stopping you? And your children deserve. You pay taxes too. You pay for these school districts too. You have rights like every other child. I send my child to a school. You send your child to a school so they can feel safe in that environment and they can get a good education. They do not go there and they have to tolerate any kinds of abuses or insults. And for the kids that are facing that, first of all, it really hurts me that you're facing that. Second of all, immediately tell your parents, immediately tell your teachers. And also, don't just tell your teachers, email your teachers. Have written record that you reported it. So when they don't act on it, they have to explain that to a judge. Don't just say it, because when you say it, it's not on record, right? So kids, whenever something happens, I want you to write it out and email it and include your parents. So all of this is on record. Because that record might be the reason. They might not even want to do something, but they're afraid of a lawsuit and they'll do something. Right? So learn to be smart about it. And when it comes to somebody else making fun of your name or insulting you, first of all, learn to ignore people. My father told me this advice a long time ago. When you're walking down the street and a dog is barking, you don't have to get offended and bark back. You keep going. You don't say, ruff, ruff. Oh yeah? Ruff, ruff, ruff. You don't do that. Just keep going. Learn to ignore people that are ignorant. Because you know what they want? They want to see a reaction from you. They want to see you scared. They want to see you offended because they get a kick out of it. You know those kinds of people? Those kids, unfortunately, they don't feel any sense of value in themselves. There's nothing good on their minds. The only time they feel good about themselves is when they make someone else feel lower. You know, you could be a better person by doing something good. So you can get higher. But if you're not able to do something good, you just make someone else feel lower and you feel automatically high. Even though you never moved an inch. You know? So you should feel sorry for people that do think like that. You should feel sorry for them. Allah has given you much stronger ambition, much stronger purpose, much stronger personalities. Don't you ever be ashamed of being Muslim. Don't you ever feel ashamed. You should feel, sorry for, and even sad for those who don't have the guidance of Allah yet. And you're gifted that you have it. Yes.
Can it be said that concept of trolling you are explaining?
Yeah.
So we need to understand what is troll means. How can you feed the troll, or how can you defeat the troll?
Right. So my brother actually added the comment, this all has to do with trolling. We have to understand what a troll is and what they need. Right? And how do you feed a troll and how do you defeat a troll? You know what the troll feeds on? Response. Attention. That's all they feed on. Don't give them that and they burn. It hurts them. Your lack of response hurts them a lot. And they'll try to get more offensive and more offensive and more offensive only in hopes that you will finally what? Give a response. And in doing so, they're only humiliating themselves and exposing themselves for who they are. That's all they're doing. So you don't have to get involved. And don't get tangled up. Even the adults, don't get tangled up in social media trolling. Don't get tangled because somebody said something. You're like, oh yeah? Well, you people, da 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 da. Or how dare you? Stop. You didn't fix anything. You didn't solve the problem of the ummah with the social media, comment fest. فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرًا أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. The believer should say something good or remain silent. Whatever happened to that? Okay.
Jazakallah khair. We have a couple more questions from the sister side.
I know you said last question. You said a couple more questions from the sister side.
It's like 5
It's cool.
minutes, right?
No, it's okay. Yeah, 5 minutes. That was 15 minutes ago. It's okay. No, it's okay. I'm good. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
So, my question is regarding marriage, and I know that...
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. Okay.
we're all taught that marriage is sunnah, it's half your deen and all of that stuff, and a lot of us grew up without a lot of instruction on what are the requirements incumbent on us to get ready to prepare to be a spouse. And so you see a lot of young people today who graduate college, get a job, next step is to get married, and there's not, other than, be able to support your wife and be of age, a lot of us don't know what we need to do to be actually ready to be a spouse. And so I'm wondering, deen-wise, with regard to deen, are there things that internally or externally that we need to have in place before we sign up for like Shadi.com or whatever?
Okay, so your question, I'm going to have a hard time repeating this one. It's about marriage. There's questions about marriage and how can young people prepare themselves for married life, right? I'll just speak to the men today. I won't speak to the women about that. How can you guys prepare yourselves? Our parents were supposed to prepare us for what it means to be, your father is supposed to prepare you for what it means to be a man, what it means to stand up on your own feet, what it means to show dignity and character, what it means to protect your family, what it means to speak to your mother with respect, to treat your daughters and your sisters a certain way, to be a protector of a household. You're supposed to pick these things up not from a course or a seminar. You're supposed to pick these things up because you're watching your dad live his life. And you pick that integrity up from him. So, you as a father are supposed to inculcate these values into your child just by the way you carry yourself and what you expect of your son. The other thing that's supposed to happen is young men are supposed to not ride off of the income of their parents. They're supposed to become financially independent as early as possible. I even say high school. Get a job. Go work. Go work through college. And you know what's happened now because of, immigrant society. We came from hard economies. Many people came to America, Australia, England, wherever. They settled. Now they have a better life, right? Because they drove the taxis. They worked in the grocery stores. They did all that stuff, worked in warehouses. And now they saved up and they put their kids through college. And their kids don't have any respect for the kind of hard work their parents did. And in fact, their kids don't even know what hard work means. So they're 3 years in college. I don't know what my major is. I was thinking like political science, but computer science or science. What is science really? You were a man, Sharia-wise, you were a man when you hit puberty, and you're acting like a giant baby when you're 25 years old. And so how are you ready for marriage? How is that being ready for marriage? So being in the real world, developing a work ethic, actually appreciating the value of supporting a family, that should be happening well before you get married, so you're ready for it. You have a sense of maturity in you for it. You don't have short temper. You don't lose your ego doesn't get inflamed every 3 seconds, because you know what it means. You know what it means to get yelled at by your boss because you came late, and you take it like a man. And you know what it means to have to make a budget. You know these things. You don't just, you got a good grade in school and your dad bought you a BMW, and then they're paying for your college tuition, and you're going out on mama's credit card. And how are you a man? Other than physically being the size of a man, you're the same as when you were 4 years old with an iPad sitting on the potty training, and there's just a man version of a baby. So you man up. I would tell the guys, man up. If you really want to get married, then you learn to take responsibility. Now, there's the psychological component, the emotional, intelligence component, these other components that come with being a responsible husband. Some of your dads are, great husbands to your moms, but they didn't take courses on how to be a good husband. They were just raised right. They were raised and they learned these values, right? They learned certain mannerisms. So pick those up. And if you don't have them, at least recognize in yourself that I don't have them. I need to get them. And when you develop that, then inshallah you're ready for a family. You're ready to take care of a family. As far as, it's a loaded question, right? Being prepared for marriage and what marriage entails. And Allah has lots of guidance on it, and in terms of the goals and purpose of marriage. In fact, it's interesting you brought this up. The Quran didn't really talk about how to have a successful marriage. Not really. There's no, this is a surah about good marriage. You know why? Just, I would say the same reason the Quran doesn't have any surahs on how to do an oil change, or any surahs on how to change a diaper, or how to calm down a baby. You know why? Some things Allah created the human beings smart enough to figure out themselves. You understand? They didn't have to be revealed. So what did Allah do? In Surah Al-Rum, He just dropped one ayah about the entire philosophy of Quranic wisdom on marriage. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Done. One ayah about marriage and its goals. One place. Some subtle hints in the ayat of Ramadan. And you know what? It has enough wisdom for you to know all the things you wouldn't have known in psychology, or you wouldn't have learned in social life. You will learn in that one ayah. That ayah's purpose is not just to go on your shadi card or to get recited at your walima ceremony. That ayah is worthy of pondering because it has the Quran's prescription for what it means to be married. So my intention, inshallah, over the next couple of months is to write a small booklet on what we can learn from that ayah. Because if Allah only talked about it this one time in a comprehensive way, it must have a lot to offer, right? So I wanted to do something like that so that inshallah ta'ala it can be of benefit from at least from the Quranic perspective. Thanks for your question.
Sheikh Ibrahim, final question.
This is fine.
So many are asking, they've got the sense that this is going to be around for a couple of days. So where would you be the next few days?
Okay, so I am in the Muslim Center in Flushing, New York tomorrow night, inshallah. And I am in Masjid, I believe it's called Masjid al-Rahman in Richmond Hills in New York on Friday. I'm giving khutbah there, and the same dars continued. And then on Saturday, I'm going to be in Masjid Darul Quran in Bayshore in Long Island, inshallah. And finally, I'm probably going to end up in Masjid Taqwa with Imam Siraj Wahaj on Sunday. And then on Monday, I'm out of here, inshallah. Inshallah. Yeah, inshallah. Next time I come back, I'll be sure to make a stop here. Really, thank you all for your wonderful hospitality and some great conversations. Jazakumullahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Jazakallah khair, Ustad. Again, for everybody here, please make dua